On behalf of Ripley's Red Express Train Tours, I'd like to officially welcome you to the oldest continuously occupied settlement in the United States of America, St. Augustine. We're 20 miles south of Jacksonville, 60 miles north of Daytona. We're located in St. Johns County. Our population is 14,200 inside the city limits. On the right side of our train, there's a statue over there of Michelangelo's David. It's one of two replicas made from the exact same marble Michelangelo used in the same location. Not the Ninja Turtle Michelangelo, the artist from Italy. He's 17 feet tall and he weighs 5 tons. That's 10,000 pounds. Oh, we already got it roped off. They just did that. They must be trimming the hedges. Huh. Yeah, they got a machine back there. I know, they're cleaning the ground. They're just power washing the sidewalk so it's nice and clean. The artist Michelangelo captured the moment and expression on David's face when he was making a conscious decision to fight Goliath, the biblical story David and Goliath. He has a rock in his right hand and a slingshot over his left shoulder. Now, when they brought David here, they actually backed up a flatbed truck at this intersection. There was a crane behind us. They picked David up and they put him in his spot. All these car accidents started happening at this intersection. Car accident after car accident for 3 weeks straight, day and night, because David's not wearing a bathrobe. Ripley's had to build a privacy hedge around David to stop all that from happening. Every day the Ripley's employees come out to this lot here. We clean all the exhibits, we make them presentable for our guests. Well, with David, we use Windex on David because it stops him from streaking. I want to point out this house on our right. There's a big 3-story gray house with white trim. That's one of Lucy Abbott's homes. My name is Jeff. I am from Rochester, New York, up by Buffalo. I've been visiting St. Augustine for about 18 years now. I retired from the military about 8 years ago. I had a house built right here in St. Augustine. My family, we were targeting the St. Johns County School District. They have a fantastic school district here. With all that said, I'm just going to jump right into our history. In the year 1513, a Spaniard by the name of Don Juan Ponce de Leon. Don, because he was the governor of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Juan Ponce, that was his name, and de Leon, he was from Leon, Spain. He was sent by the King of Spain on a mission to find 2 things. He was supposed to find the riches on an island called Bimini, that's in the Bahamas. And he was supposed to find the Fountain of Youth. Well, Don Juan Ponce de Leon never made it to Bimini. He missed it completely. He landed in what is now known as Cape Canaveral, Florida. And when he came ashore, he saw the beautiful flowers on the coastline, and he named it. He named it La Florida, land of flowers. He continued charting his way down the Florida Keys all the way to Cuba. I'm going to skip ahead to the year 1565. Another Spaniard, Pedro Menendez Cavaliz. He was a governor in Spain, and he was a captain general, highest ranking military officer. The King of Spain sent him to go to that newfound La Florida, claim the entire thing in the name of Spain, and build a city. And that is exactly what he did. As a matter of fact, he landed right here. There's a 208-foot stainless steel cross that marks the spot where they came ashore. 6 months underway, they lost 4 ships and their crews during the voyage. First thing they did when they came ashore here, folks, is they made a makeshift altar. There was a Catholic priest on board, Father Francisco Lopez. They held the very first Catholic Mass right there where that cross is. When our president, John F. Kennedy, visited this location, he proclaimed this to be the most holiest land in America. This is called the Mission Nombre de Deos, which means name of God. 5 ships pulled in right there, and all the Spaniards came ashore. Just north of us is the Soloy Village. So that's where the Tamaulipan Indians were when we first arrived. They had never seen the Spanish before. They had never seen ships like that. They prepared for war. So did the Spanish. Well, luckily, there was a peace treaty right away. They actually lived in harmony. Most of those Indians, they became Catholic. On that very first day, September 6, 1565, we had this huge feast, a celebration, celebrating the newfound friendship between the Spanish and the Indians. That was the very first Thanksgiving. It was held right there, about 1,000 people. They didn't have turkey and stuffing and things like that, no. Most likely they had fresh fish, fresh fruit. The Tamaulipan Indians, they ate alligator. So they probably had alligator for Thanksgiving. Do you have a question? You have to get tickets at Ripley's, believe it or not. This is not a stop, this is a private charter. You have to go to Ripley's, you get a ticket there. Yeah, it's down that way about 2 blocks. It's walking distance. Yeah, the Tamaulipan Indians, they ate alligator, so they probably had alligator for Thanksgiving. This was 42 years before Jamestown, Virginia. Folks, this was 55 years before Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts. Pilgrims hadn't arrived yet. So, this is the most holiest land in America. It's where we had our very first Catholic Mass and the very first Thanksgiving. Here's my favorite part of that story. When the Spanish met the Indians, they were obsessed with finding the Fountain of Youth, right? Well, check this out. The Indian men, they were 6'6" on average. Some of them were 7'4". They were giants. The Indian women, they were 6 feet tall, all of them. The Indians lived to be in their late 70s, while the Spaniards, back then, they were 5 foot and under. They lived to be in their late 40s. So they thought that the Indians were drinking from the Fountain of Youth. And they really believed it. Now the actual truth about the Fountain of Youth is the fact they were underway for 6 months. They were looking for a fresh water source. And they found it. They found it right here in St. Augustine. We're here to see this old tree that's in front of us. And it's called the Old Senator. It is 620 years old. It's also known as a love tree. It's a live oak with a palm tree growing right out of the middle of it. Now here is the legend. If you kiss your significant other under the shade of the love tree, you will be together forever. Millions and millions of people have kissed underneath this tree. When Don Juan Ponce de Leon discovered Florida in 1513, this tree was 100 years old, sitting right here. Right in the center, there's a stump. That's the palm tree. It grows and falls, it grows and falls. There are 9 of these trees in St. Augustine. I found 4 of them. I'll try to point them out for you guys. Now, you caught the name, right? It's called the Old Senator. That's because it's crooked and it's shady. Unlike our senators, that joke never gets old. Can anybody tell me, what is the oldest attraction in America? The very first attraction. Anybody know what it is? I'll give you a hint. It's in St. Augustine. It's the reason why we came here in the first place. We were looking for something. The Fountain of Youth. Good job. This is called Magnolia Avenue. It's on the cover of National Geographic magazine twice as the most beautiful street in America. I want to point this out real quick. See that home at the end of the street there? Folks, that's where Lucy Abbott lived. This was her driveway. These are live oak trees and have Spanish moss hanging from them. Spanish moss comes from the pineapple family. When the wind blows, this entire street sways back and forth. When you drive through here at night, it's like driving through a tunnel. You're not allowed to park on the street ever. Nope, the police will come get you right away. Here we are in the original 9 acres of the Soloy Village where the Tamaulipan Indians were when we first arrived. Now it's 15 acres. It takes about 2 hours to get through. This is the Fountain of Youth. You can drink from the Fountain of Youth inside here. Folks, I am 94 years old. They have live cannonball fire, live musket fire. There's an archaeological dig and they have a planetarium. They show you how the Spanish crossed the Atlantic Ocean using the stars. That's called celestial navigation. That's something. Okay, I'm walking around the Fountain of Youth one day. There's a big sign in there that said there's over 30 peacocks on the property. And I didn't see any peacocks. So I asked somebody, where's the peacocks? They said, sir, you're looking in the wrong place. They're up in the trees. I had no idea peacocks were up in the trees. Now it just so happens If you look past that fence right there, see that big window on the house? On the roof of that little shed, there's 2 male peacocks sitting on the roof of that house right there. You gotta kind of look right through it. I can see them from here. There's a billboard sign on our left. This is what they look like. When they close the tail feathers, they're actually like 6 feet long. They say that it's very good luck if you ever see a peacock. And the only time you ever do is if they want you to see them. They weigh about 12 pounds and they can fly very quickly, short distances only. They live between 12 and 22 years old. When peacocks travel together with their family, it's called a bevy. When peacocks travel together in a pack, it's called a party. That's where the word party comes from, peacocks. There's the planetarium. They've assimilated hurricane. It's amazing. By the way, if you're interested in these walls right here, this is called tapia. When we first arrived, the local Indian tribe, the Telomano Indians, were building a substance called coquina, which is compacted seashells. When the colonials got here, they added limestone to the recipe, and they kept the oyster shells in whole, creating this. This is called tapia, and this evolved into poured concrete. Make a left turn. We're going to pick up our pace a little bit here. Watch your hat. Okay, and away we go. Fast, didn't you? We weren't. Throughout this historic tour of St. Augustine, I'm going to talk about Mr. Henry Flagler, actually quite a bit. I'm going to introduce him in just a little while here. Henry Flagler didn't like the jail being located in the center of the city because he used to see the prisoners all the time. He moved the jail 1 mile north of the city and he disguised it as a hotel. There's a piece of farming equipment right here on the right side of the train. That is a manure spreader. Manure spread up, manure spread up, manure spread up, manure spread up, manure spread up. I know a really good manure spreader joke. John Deere stands behind all its equipment, except the manure spreader. There's the old jail, straight ahead of us, built back in 1891 by the same company that built the Alcazar prison in San Francisco. It's a house with a jail attached to it. We're seeing the back of it because they moved that road. That road used to run to the other side of the building. In that home is where Sheriff Joe Perry lived. 6'6", 318 pounds. He had hands the size of baseball gloves. Literally, he wore a white 10-gallon cowboy hat. St. Augustine is his city, and this was his jail. You did not mess with Sheriff Joe Perry. He lived his entire life in the jail with the prisoners, and he had a big family too. You can take a tour of the jail. It's a wonderful tour. But I gotta warn you, you gotta behave yourselves when you're in there. Sheriff Joe Perry has deputies everywhere. They'll lock you up. Let's head into the city, folks, and let's talk about pirates. There are pirates all over our city. If you see a pirate, you gotta call it out and let me know. You never know what a pirate's gonna do, and you never, ever trust a pirate. 1565, we built and named the city. We were living in harmony, and our city, it was flourishing until the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. We got attacked by pirates. In 1586, an English pirate, Sir Francis Drake, brought his pirate ships right into the Botanist Bay, and they unloaded on our city with cannonball fire. The people didn't know what to do. They'd never seen pirates before. They grabbed their possessions and belongings, and they ran into the mangroves, evacuating the city. The local Indian tribe saw the opportunity. The Indians looted the city. They took everything they could get their hands on. The pirates, They made their way ashore. They robbed all the churches, all the gold, all the silver. And then they burnt the entire city to the ground. There was nothing left. 80 years went by. We had rebuilt the city. We were living in harmony, flourishing once again. We got attacked by pirates again. 1668. Now this time it was a British pirate, Robert Searley, and he attacked us at midnight. The pirates intercepted a Spanish ship heading towards Cuba. They interrogated the crew, and they found out there was a shipment of silver in St. Augustine. Pirates were smart folks. They disguised themselves as Spaniards, and they brought our own ship into our own harbor at midnight. We let it in. First thing they did, they took out both watchtowers at the south inlet. Then they fired the signal shot into the air. 3 blasts from a musket. And that's all it took. 40 pirate ships at once pulled into the Botanist Bay. 2,000 pirates overran the city. It was brutal. Women, children, animals. When they were done, there was 60 dead on the streets right on St. Paul Street. And then they burnt the entire city to the ground once again. Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know something wasn't right here? Oh, baby, baby, I shouldn't have let you go. Now you're out of sight, yeah, show me how you wanted to be. Oh, baby, tell me, because I need to know now. My loneliness is killing me, and I must confess, I still believe. You're not with me, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Once again, on the left side of our train is one of those homes that Lucy Abbott built. Big 3-story gray house with white trim. That's one of Lucy Abbott's. They're building a hotel here. It's going to be called the San Marcos Hotel after the original one. That's where this parking garage is right there. There used to be a hotel there called the San Marcos, built back in 1887. And there was a fire, the whole thing burned to the ground. So they're building a hotel there. They're going to call it the same thing, basically, after the original. On the right side of our train is the visitor information. This was once an old dance hall in Monarch one here. It's the last building in St. Augustine made out of coquina. That sphere is marker 0 on the Spanish Trail. The Spanish walked their way from here all the way to San Diego. We marked along the way. Hit me, baby, one more time. Oh, baby, baby. Yeah, little Britney Spears. Consider yourselves lucky, folks. Almost did Justin Bieber. When the King of Spain got word of what was happening here with all the attacks, they finally decided to do something about it. They sent workers from all over the world. They built the Castillo de San Marcos to protect us from pirates. Then they built a 4 defense line wall all the way around the city. The wall ran right here. It was called the Cubo line. Went from the Castillo all the way to the San Sebastian River. This is what it looked like right there. Palm logs, stacked horizontally 6 feet high. At the very top of the wall, they planted these yucca plants. They are known as Spanish bayonet plants. If you tried to climb over the wall, you'd have to wrestle with those plants, something you don't want to do. They can very easily go right through a human hand. That's Burger Buckets. They have Hershey's ice cream, burgers, dogs, shakes, fries. On the left is an Irish pub called Ann O'Malley's. The owners are from Buffalo, and they make a beef on wick as a very popular sandwich up in Buffalo. This is Mojo's Barbecue. It's a local favorite. Great place. I highly recommend Mojo's. When we first arrived here, there was 3 Indian tribes living in villages around us: the Tamuclian, the Telomado, and the Seminole Indians. The local tribe was building a substance called coquina. Now what that is, it's compacted seashells, and when it's wet, you can shape it and mold it into just about anything. But as soon as it cures in the sun, it becomes as hard as stone. That's what they built the Castillo de San Marcos out of in most of our original homes here, coquina. The Spanish got the recipe from the Telomado Indians. This is where their village was. We're sitting right on top of it. They actually named the street after it, Telomado Lane. Coquina was quarried on Anastasia Island. It's across from the Botanist Bay. Now back then, there was no bridges. So when they built the castillo, they built it block by block, cured it in the sun, and brought it over one block at a time by boat. Of course, it took them forever. Across the street is our Catholic cemetery. It's called the Telomano Cemetery because of its location. If you were Catholic, you were allowed to be buried within the city limits. Remember, there was a wall all around the city. If you were not Catholic, you had to be buried anywhere else but. And that is when we created the public cemetery outside the city gates. So one more thing I want to point out. Very famous for St. Augustine is our Cathedral Basilica. It's the very first congregation, Spanish for Catholic. All the cardinals and bishops that have served there over the years are buried in our Catholic cemetery. Kind of cool. I want to point out this tree across the street on our left. That's another one of those love trees. Live oak with a palm tree growing right out of the middle of it. If you kiss your significant other under the shade of the love tree, you will be together forever.
Cheesecake Company.
Potter's Wax Museum's on our left. There used to be no drugstore located there. Potter's dates back to the drugstore dates back to 1886. Potter's has all the presidents, most of the Star Wars characters, and now they have a Britney Spears. Oh baby, baby. Oh baby, baby. Oh baby, baby. How was I supposed to know something wasn't right here? Okay, mothers. Pay attention, mothers. You have to be very careful when you kiss underneath those love trees. I'm not joking around. Mothers, if you were to kiss your young son underneath one of those trees, he will never leave the house. He'll be 40 years old sitting in your basement playing Xbox. Here's the city gates. This was the only way in and out of the city. They had a 40-foot wide moat out here that ran the entire Kubo line, and there was a drawbridge, and every night they'd raise the drawbridge up. If you were outside, you were trapped outside until the next morning. That's the oldest schoolhouse right there on our right. That's called St. George Street. If you don't see everything in St. Augustine, you gotta see St. George Street. Here's a good tip, too. You got free parking at Ripley's all day and all evening. Just walk across the street. City gates, St. George Street. There's the Castillo de San Marcos. That's one of our talking points later on the tour. But I will share this with you. They specifically built that to protect us from pirates. Originally, there was 4 of those. They were made out of wood, and they got burnt to the ground.
Distillery.
On the right-hand side of our train is our very own pirate museum. The largest collection of pirate memorabilia in the entire world. On the left, in the far, far distance there, you can see the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this is called the Botanist Bay. That is the Botanist Inlet. There are 2 inlets, north and south. To the right of the inlet is Anastasia Island. That is part of St. Augustine. The only thing in between us and Africa is Anastasia Island right there. During the 1700s, there was a family that lived over there. Jesse Fisher. He had 10,000 acres of citrus, oranges, Ripley, and lemon. Once upon a time. Jeez. Once upon a time, there was wild horses running free all over Anastasia Island. You can feel the breezes coming off the Botanist Bay now. The Spanish recognized that and they harnessed it. That's the reason why they built all of these streets very narrow and winding. It picks up the breezes from the Botanist Bay. The trade winds whip right through here, cooling down all the houses naturally. Having streets that are narrow and winding like this, it also stops cannonball fire from traveling long distances. We had a plan. After the pirates burnt the city to the ground the second time, Spain sent us a city plan. We followed it to the T when we rebuilt the city. The idea was to have a center plaza with 22 square blocks around it with the Castillo de San Marcos to protect us and a defense line wall all the way around the city. They finished building all of it in 1695, including the castillo. There's a raw oyster bar on our right and a massage parlor on our left. Speed clear some of the people out of the way. Here we go. Red 5 going in. Stay on target. Stay on target. Just like Beggars Canyon back home. We are right in the center of St. George Street now. It's where the restaurants and shops are. 200 plus restaurants, shops, bars, boutiques, art galleries, pedestrian only, all family owned places, with one exception, the Columbia restaurant right across from us on the right. See this beautiful garden on the right hand side of our train? That is called the Hispanic Gardens. It was built back in 1965 as a tribute, showing the friendship between Latin America, Spain, and St. Augustine. This is what the gardens look like at the Alhambra Palace in Spain. They only open this garden 2 times a year, Easter Sunday and when someone is being knighted. Right in the center of the garden, there's a statue of Queen Isabella. She's wearing peasant clothes and she's riding a burro, a donkey. She was the Queen of Spain in the late 1400s. She would disguise herself as a peasant and travel through the cities of Spain, and nobody knew she was a queen. Queen Isabella was Catholic. She pushed the Catholic religion throughout Spain, pushing all the other religions out. And she's the one that funded Christopher Columbus on all of his voyages. Queen Isabella.
St. Augustine and made it what it is today. Mr. Henry Flagler. He was from Hopewell, New York. He ran away from home at age 14, right after 8th grade. Flagler had a lot of failed businesses as he was growing into a young adult. He partnership with a man named John D. Rockefeller. They started a company in Ohio called Standard Oil. They made a fortune. Henry Flagler came to St. Augustine under doctor's orders. He had a very sick first wife, Mary. The doctor said the climate here would do her well. When they arrived, he fell in love with their city, and he dreamed of building a grand hotel here where the rich and famous could come as a winter retreat. He found the perfect place to build it. Thank you. But he had a problem. Yeah, there was a Methodist congregation that had a rundown church in the ideal spot. Flagler made a deal with them. He said, I'll build you a brand new church if you're willing to relocate. And they agreed. He built the Grace United Methodist Church for them, and he spared no expense. Handmade red Italian terracotta from Italy. The doors are made out of cedar, weigh over 600 pounds each. It's one of the first buildings in St. Augustine made a brand new invention. Poured concrete. Flagler had one stipulation though. He said, no bell in the church bell tower, the steeple. I'll tell you why in just a moment. When the local Baptist congregation realized how generous Flagler was, they went to him and they said, we want a brand new church too. And he did it. He gave them the property for free. Then he gave them $10,000 towards the cost. They built the Ancient City Baptist Church. That is yellow brick. It's very unique. You never see yellow brick. And once again, there's no bell in the church bell tower, the steeple. Flagler had his very first hotel built, the Pont Sillon, back in 1888. He had this corner house on our right built for his general manager. He gave it to him on Christmas morning as a gift. Every year, when Ripley's Red Express train tours has the Christmas bonuses for all the employees, I remind my boss of Henry Flagler's generosity. Tragedy struck the Flagler family. His daughter Jeannie passed away while giving birth. Would have been his first granddaughter. David didn't survive. Then his wife Mary, who was very ill, she passed away. Flagler was all alone. He had a memorial built for them. Folks, he wanted it done within 1 year's time of their death. He hired workers to work around the clock 24/7. They got it done just in time. The Flagler Memorial Presbyterian Church.
Inside there is a mausoleum, and that is where Henry Flagler is laid to rest, with his first wife, Mary, his daughter, Jeannie, and the infant granddaughter baby that didn't survive. Also, inside there, 5,000-piece pipe organ. That's why Flagler didn't want bells in any of the surrounding churches. He wanted nothing to compete with his own church bell and that 5,000-piece pipe organ. Look back over your left shoulder, you get a magnificent view of that beautiful church. I'll tell you, it's even better if you see it at night because all the light shines through the stained glass. Now we're behind the Ponce de Leon Hotel, Flagler's first, built back in 1888. Now when they built this, we had a brand new invention, electricity. He hired Thomas Edison himself to come here and oversee the installation of power in the over 540 rooms inside this beautiful hotel. Then they encountered their first problem. You see, when the guests started arriving, nobody knew what electricity was. They were scared of it. They wanted nothing to do with it. They wouldn't go in the rooms. They had spent 4 days on a train to get here, spent $10,000 to stay in this hotel, and nobody would go in the rooms. Flagler's big grand opening was a bust. He was angry. They say that he said, I can remedy this. I can remedy this. Here's what he did. He hired a worker to stand outside of the rooms, and he paid them 75 cents a day back in 1888, and all they had to do was flip the switch on and off for the guests. I want that job. They had power here 4 years before the White House did. See that round structure? That was a grand ballroom. It's the largest collection of Tiffany glass in the entire world. It's being protected by thick sheets of plastic so it can never be damaged or broken. This became Flagler College back in 1968. It opened as a liberal arts all-female school. 1 year later, it went co-ed. Still Flagler College today. 2,500 students. Wow, it's traffic out of nowhere. See those chains? Those are called harbor chains. Yeah, the Spanish would lay those on the ocean floor right in front of the inlet. When the enemy ships came, like the pirate ship, they'd use what's called a bollard, and they'd raise them up about 5 feet under the water surface. The enemy ships wouldn't even see them. They'd run right into them. It would poke a hole in their keel, causing them to sink right in the harbor. Harbor chains. Focus your attention on the balconies up there. 5 different presidents stayed up there. Roosevelt, Cleveland, Harding, Johnson, JFK. Lots of famous people, John D. Rockefeller, Mark Twain, Ernest Hemingway, Babe Ruth, Charlie Chaplin. It cost $10,000 to stay in this hotel. It was only open January, February, March. It was a winter retreat only. That is Henry Flagler, not that guy up there. He has his right hand in his right pocket, kind of like he does, holding the very first dollar bill he ever made. And if you look at Flagler's eyes, his eyes are tracking to the bank right across the street. That's Henry Flagler. This is what the Alhambra Palace in Spain looks like. It's an exact replica of the right wing. It was built back in 1883 by a hardware salesman from Boston, Massachusetts, Franklin Smith. First building in St. Augustine made out of poured concrete. They used railroad ties to hold it all together. He built it as a winter retreat for his family. This was here about 5 years before anything else was around. It is called the Villa Zareta, and it's a museum now. Inside, you can find precious arts from all over the world. The floor tiles themselves are from Spain, over 300 years old. There's a collection inside there of carpets. They found them in a crypt in Persia. The carpets are made out of cat hair. They're supposed to be cursed. Notice all the windows. They're different size and shape. That's to keep the evil spirits out. The evil spirits get confused and they can't figure out how to get in. Been many things over the years. It was a gentleman's club, invitation only, place where businessmen came to smoke cigars and make business deals. When it was a casino, Al Capone used to gamble in there. When he was having all that fun up in Chicago, Al Capone disappeared and came here. Yeah, he's gambling there. When it was a hotel, Henry Flagler stayed here on his honeymoon with his second wife. He wanted to buy it. Franklin Smith wouldn't sell it to him. And that's when Flagler went across the street and bought all the property, built the Ponce de Leon Hotel. Flagler was married 3 times. Here's a little known fact. During World War II, people stopped going to the Ponce de Leon, too busy fighting with the war, so they made this the United States Coast Guard Recruit Training Center. That was the boot camp for the Coast Guard. 2,500 Coasties all training in their whites. It's the birthplace of the Coast Guard Reserves and the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Henry Flagler buys the railroad just west of us and he renames it Florida East Coast Railway. He modernized it, he expanded it, he made it stop right here in St. Augustine. Then he continued it all the way to Key West, building Palm Beach and Miami along the way. So now he's got a way to get you here and he's got a great place for you to stay. He needs something for you to do for fun. He builds the Alcazar Hotel. He had just visited the French Riviera. He wanted a place for people to get together and cut loose. It's now called the Lightyear Museum. The Lightyear family, they travel around the world and they buy collections of collections. And each hotel room is a different collection. That's what you find inside. That's Pedro Menendez Avelis, the one that built the name St. Augustine. The Alcazar actually opened in December of 1888. Inside there's a 2-lane bowling alley, a black and white picture show movie theater. That's where Charlie Chaplin used to hang out. Sulfur baths, steam baths, gymnasium, grand ballroom, 3 stories high, formal dining room. Then Flagler built a swimming pool inside the building, only one in the entire world at the time. The people came all over the place to see it. Right next to the pool was an orchestra pit, so you could listen to live music while you're swimming. Unfortunately, ladies, Henry Flagler had one stipulation with the swimming pool. Yeah, he said that the women are not allowed to swim in the shallow end of the pool ever. It was forbidden. The men would sit in the shallow end of the pool and they would smoke cigars and make business deals, while the women had to go to the deep end of the pool and tread water. The idea was that women could gossip while they were treading water. That was Flagler's theory, not mine. Bicycle riding was all the rave in the late 1800s. That parking lot on our right was the Bicycle Academy. You had to have a license to ride a bicycle in the city. They had tennis courts, archery, badminton, all sorts of games for people to play for fun. Okay, let's pick up our pace. Away we go. Notice all the vibrant colors. This part of our city is called Lincolnville. It's named after President Abraham Lincoln. After the Civil War, the free men came here. They were welcomed in our city. They built this beautiful community back here. Most of the people who lived here were the workers in the hotels. This is the largest collection of Victorian-style homes in Northeast Florida. We refer to these homes as our painted ladies because of all the vibrant colors. That's a restaurant. It's called a preserved restaurant. Thomas Jefferson's great-granddaughter used to live there. Back before this was Lincolnville, this was 40,000 acres of citrus, oranges, grapefruit, and lemon. Across the street is the Marina. If you visit any of our local restaurants and you order seafood, most likely it was just offloaded right there, today or yesterday fresh. The San Sebastian River runs behind that. That attaches to our Botanist Bay. We have an oyster fleet, a shrimp fleet, and a very large fishing fleet. This is a brand new restaurant, St. Augustine Fish Camp. They have complimentary valet parking.
That is a great place. It was a 4-day transit to get here from New York City by the railroad. The first thing you did when you arrived here, you took your horse off the train, you brought your horse to the Liberty stables right down the right, and they would babysit your horse for you while you visit the city. Everybody traveled with their horses. Right up until the bicycle riding became popular. This was a Cuban cigar factory. Henry Flagler would go in there every couple of weeks and buy about 200 cases of cigars. He'd give them away as gifts to all the guests in the hotels. That was one of our major exports, Cuban cigars. Citrus, sugarcane, oysters, by boat and by railroad. On the right is the location of the city blacksmith. If your horse threw a shoe, that's what you brought him. They would attach him up, get it back on the road for you. On the right side of our train. That was once Flagler Hospital. You know, if you worked for Henry Flagler, you had free medical and health care. He took care of every single one of his employees. On the left, in the far, far distance, you can see the new Flagler Hospital. 9 floors. Here we go. This is the Sebastian Winery. It's a free wine tasting tour. It takes about 20 minutes. It's children-friendly, family-friendly. All the grapes are locally harvested. They're called muscadine grapes, and there's a restaurant up on the roof. Fridays and Saturday nights, all the locals bounce back and forth to the winery and the distillery because they both have free tours and they both have live music up there. Now, originally, this was a railroad hub. It's where they repaired the trains, the engines, and the carriages. The tracks ran right through the middle of it the long way, and Flagler owned it. It's also where they kept all the records for the Florida East Coast Railway. What goes really good with wine? Cheese. What else? Pasta, fruit, seafood, Cuban cigars, music. You know what the number one answer is? Chocolate. I'm going to show you guys the Whetstone Chocolate Factory. Henry and Ethel Whetstone. They're from St. Augustine. He was in the military, Army Corps of Engineers. He was stationed in Japan. When they were engaged to be married, he missed her so much he couldn't stand it. He flew her to Japan. They got married over there. Well, they opened an ice cream parlor on St. George Street back in 1966 called Teddy's Ice Cream. Then they started making fudge, and they got a contract from Disney. They made all the fudge for Disney World. They opened a chocolate factory right here in our city. You can take a tour of it. They show you how they make all the chocolate, like you sample everything. That's one of their stores where they sell their chocolates. I'll come back to that. See this thrift store on our left? You know who owns that? Loretta Swit. Hot Lips Houlihan from MASH, remember her? Yeah, they have stores all over our city, folks. Their chocolate-covered strawberries are absolutely incredible. Up here on our right is the very first ice plant in the state of Florida. It opened in 1917. Prior to that was an electrical plant that Henry Flagler helped fund. Then they invented freezers and refrigerators. They didn't need an ice plant anymore. It melted away. And now it's our distillery. There's a restaurant here called the Ice Plant. It is fantastic. Sunday morning brunch. That is the best place to go in North Florida, hands down. The distillery is a free tasting tour. It takes about 40 minutes. It is children-friendly, family-friendly.
They make bourbon, scotch, whiskey, gin, vodka, and rum. You get to taste all the liquors in the original cocktails they were intended for. And after that, you do these little sample shots of everything. That's a really nice tour. Plantation home on our right that's for sale now. Last time I looked, they wanted $870,000 for it. Now it's just under $1 million. Remember, this was 40,000 acres of citrus here. It's really not much to see. This next intersection that we are approaching is called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Every city in America has a Martin Luther King road, street, boulevard. This is the only one that he actually ever marched on. We had a Freedom March. It went south to north, right up the street, around the Center Plaza, back to Lincolnville. He used to come here all the time. He was welcomed in our city. They say that he stayed in a different home every night of the week. He was known for doing that. That means he stayed in all these houses one time or another. It just so happens that next Monday is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. 3-day weekend. We know for a fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used to stay in his home right here on the right. It's white with red trim. He signed the family's Bible that lived here, and it's one of the markers on the Freedom Trail. He used to give sermons at the church right there across the street, the Trinity Independent. This red building was a supermarket in Lincolnville, and now it's the Dog Rose Microbrewery. We have 4 microbreweries in St. Augustine. Also on the right, that's called The Record. That is St. Augustine's newspaper. This was their original location. This was the major news hub right here. On Memorial Day, there was this little boy sitting in the front seat right here. His name was Brandon. He was 6 years old. I'll never forget Brandon as long as I live. I know his name is Brandon because every 5 minutes he'd say, "My name's Brandon." I go, "Hey Brandon, young man, what is your favorite animal?" Brandon said, "Fried chicken." I go, "Brandon, what's your favorite animal that's still alive?" And he said, "Chickens, because mommy can make fried chicken." When El Capone was having all that fun up in Chicago, he just came here, he stayed in that third White House on the right. I go, "Okay, Brandon. Brandon, what's your favorite drink?" He said, "Barbecue sauce." Not a lot of stories about El Capone. He used to gamble in the Village of Rada. He used to spend a lot of money at the supermarket every day. I go, "Okay, Brandon. Brandon, who's your favorite superhero?" You gotta have a favorite superhero. Brandon kept looking at his mom. I thought for sure he was gonna say mommy. That would have been awesome, right? Nope. You know what he said? He said Colonel Sanders. All these hotels that were built back in 1888, these skywalks connecting them all. You go from building to building without going outside. Look up there, you can see right where the skywalk came out. The Casa Monica on our right is the only one still running as a hotel today. It was our courthouse for many, many years. And now it's back to being a hotel once again. It was built by Franklin Smith, the same guy that built the Villa Zareda. He went bankrupt. Flagler bought this from him, making this Flagler's 3rd hotel. First thing Flagler did, he changed the name to the Hotel Cordova. Earlier I mentioned Center Plaza with 22 square blocks around it. This is Center Plaza. It's called the Plaza Constitucion. It's the very first public park. There's memorials here for the Spanish Constitution, the Revolution War, the Civil War, the North Korean War, and the Vietnam War. This was our Center Trade Plaza.
They had scales, weights and balances and measures. The fishermen would offload their catch at the Marina across the street and they'd bring it over here for trade. This is also where we held our public executions every Sunday, right after Catholic Mass. Just like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Did you know that all the statues in St. Augustine are pointing to the location of the Fountain of Youth? Yep, there's only a couple exceptions. Henry Flagler's one of them. Flagler used to face the other way, it's one of them around. Here's the Cathedral Basilica. First congregation, Spanish for Catholic. Right above the front doors, the statue of St. Augustine. This is a Basilica Minor, because the Pope has never given a sermon in there. If he ever does, it'll become a Basilica Major. And this is not its original location. It used to be across the street. The pirates burned it to the ground twice. And it's moving. Here's the governor's house, where the governor of Florida lived and worked, right up until we established our state capital. In 1824, we moved to Tallahassee. Still see cannonball fire, musket fire in these old coquina walls here. Most likely from the English in 1702 or the English in 1740. As I make this left turn, you're going to see a well really close to the curb right there. If you see a well in St. Augustine, you need to be very, very careful. If you were deemed to be a witch, they tie your hands together, they tie your feet together, and they throw you in the well. If you sank and you perished, you were not a witch. This is the oldest street in America. It's called Abilene Street, very first one. Normally I pull down there, folks, but there's a Hyde park right there in the street. If I go down there, we're going to get stuck. The oldest part of the oldest city. It used to be sand and dirt. When it rained, the horses and carriages would get stuck. Henry Flagler decided to lay brick down. The original jail is right down on the left. That, like I said, normally I go right down there, but can't do it. I saw that car when we drove by the first time. I was looking down there to see if it was clear. Can't do it. After we built and named the city, we got word that the French had just landed up in Jacksonville. They're building a fort called Fort Caroline. They're invading Spanish territory. We marched our soldiers up there. We defeated the French. During that battle, we got hit by a hurricane. Yeah, they're fighting during a hurricane. One single French ship escaped. It was overloaded with French soldiers that were literally fleeing for their lives. Well, the French ship made its way down the Florida coast. The hurricane pushed it ashore just south of the Matanzas Inlet. Spanish overran it. They brought all those French soldiers right here. They lined them up along the seawall. They told them, you're going to pledge allegiance to the King of Spain and you're going to become Catholic. Those that agreed, they were put aside. Those that refused, they were put to the sword. They cut them stem to stern, and they threw them in the Matanzas. Hundreds and hundreds of French soldiers. When Pedro Menendez Aviles realized he had to feed the rest of these soldiers, they were also put to the sword and thrown in the Matanzas. They say the water was red for 3 days. That's the Botanist Bay and the Matanzas Inlet. Does anybody know what the word Matanzas means? Folks, it means massacre. It also means slaughter. That's how it got its name. I find this kind of comical. Over the years, the people in our city, they forgot what the word Matanzas means. We have a Matanzas nail salon. We have a Matanzas barbershop. We have a Matanzas massage parlor. And we have the Matanzas high school. Yeah, they call it Slaughter High.
This is the oldest house. Dates back to the year 1723. However, it's probably a lot older than that. All the records were burnt in fires, so nobody really knows. If you like the tour, folks, go on TripAdvisor and give us a recommendation. It's really simple. It's TripAdvisor, Ripley's Red Train. My name is Jeff. My boss reads those. And it's great to hear what the guests have to say about our tours. We're just going to turn around right here. We're going to go back to the waterfront. We're going to talk about the Castillo de San Marcos, and then we're going to go back to Ripley's. Straight ahead of us, that's one of the homes you can order out of the Sears catalog. The Sears and Roebuck Company started selling homes out of the catalog in 1912. They had lots of options. Balconies, peaks, porches. It had to be delivered by railroad. They used craftsman tools to put it all together. There's a few of those in St. Augustine. The corner house on our left is called the Toll Bar House. There is a cannonball sticking out of the side of this house. To see the cannonball, you got to look through the gate, look back at the wall of the house. It's just past the second window at the bottom. It's about the size of an orange. It's black in color. There's a big ring around it, remains intact. Not every day you see a cannonball sticking out of the side of a house, right? Most likely from the English in 1740, and most likely it was fired from Anastasia Island way over there. This building on our right was a mission ran by friars, the Franciscan friars in the Spanish. During the Treaty of Paris, when the British took over St. Augustine, the British made this their military headquarters, and they named it St. Francis Barracks. Now, it's the headquarters and home of the Florida National Guard. They never changed the name. That is the only U.S. military base in the entire world that is named after a saint. You'll find the national ensign and the Florida state flag right below it. That White House over there is called the King's Bakery. It is the last British building standing in St. Augustine. Watch your hat. It's gonna get windy. Across the Botanist Bay, you can see our very own lighthouse. Black and white counterclockwise stripes with a red top. You can see that light 19 to 24 nautical miles at sea. There are 219 steps inside. It was built back in 1874. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. That's the Black Raven pirate ship, and it's in port right now. That means there's pirates all over our city. If you see a pirate, you gotta call it out, let me know. You never know what a pirate's gonna do. You never ever trust a pirate. They have 2 dinner cruises every evening. They take you out there, they feed you. They bring another pirate ship alongside, they have a battle, they fire the cannons and everything. It's actually really cool. The one that's later in the evening is more adult oriented, and they have a full bar too. It's actually a lot of fun. What is a pirate's favorite color? Gold, gold. No one accepted silver. How much money does a pirate spend to get his ears pierced? A buccaneer. Where does a pirate buy his hook? That's easy, at a second-hand store. What did the pirate say on his 80th birthday? I'm 80. I love that joke. That's a great joke. 1927, with the Treasury Building, only skyscraper. The same year, we built the Bridge of Lions, finally connecting Anastasia Island to the rest of St. Augustine. What do you call a pirate that has 2 arms and has 2 legs? A rookie. Let's talk about the Castillo de San Marcos. In the year 1702, the English attacked St. Augustine. They attacked us from the north under the leadership of Governor Moore from the Carolines. It was called the Siege of St. Augustine. There was lots of skirmishes. Then the English started firing cannonball fire right into the center of the city. Everybody who lived here ran inside the Castillo de San Marcos. They surrounded us. They bombed us for 3 months straight. The entire city was in there for 3 months. November, December, and January of that year. The English couldn't take the fort, so they burned the city to the ground and they left in shame. They returned 38 years later in 1740, this time under the leadership of Governor Oglethorpe. They set up camp over there on Anastasia Island. There's actually a park over there called Oglethorpe Park. Everybody ran inside the castillo. They bombed us for 27 days straight, day and night, constant bombardment. Once again, they couldn't take the fort. They burned the city to the ground. This is the only masonry fort in the entire world that's never been taken in metal. Our city has been burned to the ground 4 times. Twice by the pirates, twice by the English. The walls are 15 feet thick at the bottom, 4 feet thick at the top. It's painted white. There was a red tower at each corner. When you pulled into the Matanzas, you knew this was Spanish just by looking at it. We're flying the Spanish battle flag. It looks exactly like the Florida state flag, except it's missing the gold seal in the center of it. Every night, the Spaniards would climb over the walls using rope, and they'd pry the cannonballs out of the walls. They'd write funny things on them and fire them right back at the enemy. With an unlimited supply of ammo by doing this. You can't see it, but there's a moat that runs all the way around the castillo. We all know what a moat is. That's called a dry moat. It's not supposed to have water in it. Instead, that's where they kept their 240 head of cattle. They had dairy cows and beef cows. They had milk. They had meat. They had chickens. They had eggs. When they knew the battle was coming, they would stampede the cattle to the enemy camps, disrupting their operations. That's how they got the cattle here. There's nowhere close to this. No, the cannons up there had a 3-mile radius. They were precision accurate. See the big crack by the right tower there? They filmed the movie. They put water in the boat for the movie. That's what happened. It's called the Castillo de San Marcos. Castillo means castle. That's because the second governor of Florida used to live in there. That's the difference between a fort and a castle. It has to have a residence. We are now leaving the city gates. If you were not Catholic, you were buried out here, public cemetery. There it is. It's called the Huguenot Cemetery. There are no Huguenots buried there, though. They're all Presbyterian. And this cemetery is massive. It's on both sides of us. It's bodies over bodies, mass graves, and buildings on top of that, including Ripley's. Has anybody ever heard of yellow fever? St. Augustine had this horrible epidemic of yellow fever. About 450 people perished all at once. Folks, they buried them in the Huguenot Cemetery. That's a lot of bodies. Well, while they were burying these people, they were waking up. They were in a coma. Nobody knew what a coma was. We were burying people alive by the hundreds. So you know what we did? Well, we tied a string to your finger or your toe. We buried you. We ran the string through the grave and we attached it to a bell. If the bell rang, we dug you back up. That's where the term dead ringer comes from. That's where the term saved by the bell comes from. And that's where the term graveyard shift comes from. They had to take turns sitting out there all night listening for bells to ring. Believe it or not. If you like the tour, go on TripAdvisor. Give us a recommendation. My name is Jeff. Now, if you didn't like the tour or you think there's something we should improve on, I encourage you, go on TripAdvisor. Tell us what we can fix. Now, folks, if you do that, my name is Frank. On behalf of Ripley's Red Express Train Tours, thank you so much for riding with us today. It was a pleasure showing you a little of St. Augustine today. Enjoy our beautiful city. Bye for now.